Before Marlon Brando, Hollywood was a world of polished performances and studio-controlled stars. Actors hit their marks, said their lines perfectly, and showed you emotions that were easy to read. Then, a mumbling, rebellious force of nature showed up and broke everything. This is the story of how Marlon Brando's legendary chaos on and off the set didn't just make a mess. It accidentally invented the modern movie star and the Hollywood we know today. In Hollywood's golden age, actors were predictable. They were handsome, well-spoken, and totally under the thumb of the studios that manufactured their public image. Acting wasn't about psychological truth, it was about theatrical projection. But in the late 1940s, a new kind of actor started smoldering on the New York stage. He was a student of Stella Adler and her interpretation of the Stanislavski system. Brando deeply preferred Adler's technique, which used imagination and the magic IF. What would I really do in this situation? Over Lee Strasberg's more popular method, which required dredging up past personal trauma? Brando personally couldn't stand Strasberg's approach. This new actor was Marlon Brando, and he was about to declare war on tradition. His film debut in 1950s, The Men, was a sign of things to come. To play a paraplegic veteran, Brando immersed himself in the world of his character, spending a month at a veterans' hospital to absorb the physical and emotional reality. This level of dedication was practically unheard of. But his next role? That was the cultural atom bomb. In 1951, director Elia Kazan brought his Broadway hit, A Streetcar Named Desire, to the screen, and he insisted on casting the explosive young actor who had already defined the role of Stanley Kowalski on stage. When Brando showed up on screen, ripped t-shirt clinging to his chest, mumbling his lines with a raw, animalistic energy, he wasn't just playing a character, he was rewiring the nervous system of American cinema. His primal scream of "Stella" wasn't just a line delivery. It was the birth announcement of a new era. Here was an actor who wasn't performing emotions, but who seemed to be experiencing them right there on screen. Brando's Stanley was brutal but vulnerable, a walking contradiction that made every other leading man look like a cardboard cutout. He launched a revolution in acting with his raw, naturalistic style. Hollywood had never seen anything like it, and after Streetcar, it could never go back. The birth of the rebel. If A Streetcar Named Desire was the artistic revolution, Brando's next iconic role created the cultural blueprint for rebellion. As Johnny Strabler in 1953's The Wild One, Brando, with his leather jacket, tilted cap, and simmering disdain, became the face of post-war youth angst. When asked what he's rebelling against, his character famously retorts, "What do you got?" That line echoed through an entire generation. He wasn't just an actor anymore, he was a cultural icon. But Brando wasn't just putting on an attitude, he backed it up with unmatched genius. This was cemented just a year later, in 1954, with On the Waterfront. His performance as Terry Malloy, a washed-up boxer tangled up with the mob, is a masterclass in the very naturalistic style he helped popularize. It all leads to one of the most famous scenes in movie history, the backseat conversation with his brother, Charlie. As Terry confronts his brother about the throne fight that torpedoed his career, Brando doesn't play the scene with big, explosive anger. He plays it with the heartbreaking softness of deep regret. His improvised moments, like the way he nervously toys with Ava Marie Saint's glove, were choices no classically trained actor would have ever made. And then comes the line, "I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody, instead of a bum, which is what I am." In that moment, Terry isn't just admitting his regret. He's realizing for the first time that he deserved better. It's a quiet, devastatingly human moment. The performance earned Brando his first Academy Award. But it was more than that. It was Hollywood's official surrender. The Oscar was a validation not just for Brando, but for this entire new generation of actors. Authenticity had officially beaten presentation. The age of the polished, predictable star was over. The age of the brooding, complicated anti-hero had just begun. The price of genius. Winning that Oscar gave Brando enormous power, and he immediately started using it to tear down the very system that had just crowned him king. Having shattered the rules of acting, he now aimed his sights at the rules of stardom. He quickly got a reputation for being difficult, clashing with directors, and having zero patience for the phony nature of celebrity. This rebellious streak hit its peak during the filming of 1961's One-Eyed Jacks, Brando's one and only time in the director's chair. With total creative control, he became obsessed. He shot nearly 1 million feet of film and sent the production massively over budget, from a planned $1.8 million to a final cost of around $6 million. He'd wait for hours for the waves to look more dramatic, while the cast and crew were on full salary. Eventually, Paramount Pictures had to step in and take the film away just to get it edited. The experience soured Brando on directing forever, but it cemented his industry reputation as a brilliant but uncontrollable artist. His on-set antics became the stuff of legend. He would improvise wildly, and he flat-out refused to memorize lines. Instead, he'd have them written on cue cards and placed around the set, sometimes even taped to the other actors. From his point of view, it was a search for authenticity. He believed that once lines were memorized, they sounded fake. To studios and directors, however, it was just the infuriating and expensive behavior of a star who'd gotten too powerful. But this wasn't just ego. It was a philosophical war against a system he saw as a creative prison. He viewed the studio machine as a factory that churned out predictable products, and he refused to be a cog in it. Whether it was his obsessive directing or his defiant use of cue cards, Brando was fighting for a new kind of artistic freedom. It was a messy, chaotic, and often self-destructive process, but it was a crucial step in shifting the power dynamic from the studios to the stars. The weaponization of fame. By the early 1970s, after a string of flops, a lot of people in Hollywood had written Brando off. But then came The Godfather. His transformative performance as Vito Corleone was a monumental comeback, a quiet storm of power and gravitas that once again redefined screen acting. He was the clear favorite to win Best Actor at the 1973 Academy Awards. He had the world's undivided attention, and he decided to give it away. When his name was called, it wasn't Brando who walked to the stage, but a young Apache woman named Sacheen Littlefeather. She calmly refused the Oscar on his behalf, explaining that Brando was boycotting the ceremony to protest the film industry's degrading portrayal of Native Americans and to draw attention to the ongoing standoff at Wounded Knee. The reaction in the room was a chaotic mix of applause and furious boos. Backstage, Hollywood legend has it that John Wayne was so enraged he had to be held back by 6 security guards to keep him from physically dragging Littlefeather off the stage. Later, Clint Eastwood, while presenting an award, sarcastically offered to accept it on behalf of all the cowboys shot in John Ford westerns. This was Brando's ultimate antic. He had hijacked the industry's single most self-congratulatory night and turned it into a global stage for political protest. It was a move that had never been seen before, and it forever changed the relationship between celebrity and activism. Brando proved that a star's influence didn't have to be limited to the box office. He weaponized his fame, showing that the modern movie star could have a powerful, defiant voice that held the very industry that created them accountable. From that point on, Brando's career became a fascinating mix of pure brilliance and what many saw as cynical indifference. He'd take on a role in a movie like Superman for a massive paycheck, barely hiding his boredom, yet still deliver a performance that anchored the entire film. He spent his later years in self-imposed exile, but his shadow over Hollywood only grew larger. So, how did one man's rebellion accidentally build the modern film industry? He shattered the old model of acting, trading theatrical polish for psychological truth. He carved a path for generations of actors, from Robert De Niro and Al Pacino to Daniel Day-Lewis and Leonardo DiCaprio. They all walk in the footsteps Brando left with his raw, vulnerable, and unpredictable performances. His defiant behavior on set, as chaotic as it was, became a declaration of artistic independence that helped shift power from the studios to the talent. And his political stunts, especially the Oscar protest, created the template for the modern activist celebrity. He proved that a star could be more than just a famous face. They could be a force for change. Marlon Brando didn't just change acting. He changed what it meant to be an actor. He built a new kind of stardom out of genius and madness, art and antics, forever blurring the line between the performance on screen and the rebel off of it. Hollywood may not have wanted his revolution, but it was the revolution it desperately needed. What's your favorite Marlon Brando performance, and why? Let us know in the comments below. And for more stories about the icons who broke the mold, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our next video.